Okay, Elizabeth Forsyth Haley once wrote, "Time is a cruel thief, stealing our past selves bit by bit. We lose as much to life as we do to death." And yet, in the couple of years the universe has been running, humanity has accomplished incredible feats, building civilizations, exploring the cosmos, and for some reason creating deep-fried butter. So of course, some of us choose to spend our fleeting existence staring at progress bars in MMORPGs, watching numbers go up while our actual lifespan ticks down. Some people train for marathons, some master the violin, and then there are MMO players, grinding for digital blacksmith mastery, staring at progress bars for days in order to make imaginary objects to be used in a digital fantasy world. And if Ashes of Creation delivers on its promises, you'd better believe it's going to be a time sink so absurd, future archaeologists will uncover your account and wonder if human civilization collapsed because we spent too much time leveling up our artisan skills. And that's exactly why Ashes of Creation's approach to time investment deserves scrutiny. MMOs thrive when the grind feels meaningful, when every hour invested leads to a real sense of progression, accomplishment, and mastery. But when that grind is dictated by arbitrary spawn timers and artificially stretched out progression systems, it stops being a rewarding challenge and starts feeling like a glorified waiting room. Nothing kills immersion faster than standing around staring at a countdown clock, praying that some digital scrap finally appears so that you can actually play the game you signed up for. If Intrepid isn't careful, they won't just be testing players' patience, they'll be relying on an outdated system that belongs to an era when players had all the time in the world to waste. Some will accept it, others will tolerate it, and plenty will just move on. The real question isn't whether people will play despite it, but whether this decades-old design philosophy is the best Intrepid can do. So let's break down whether they're innovating on time investment or just dressing up old ideas in a prettier, more modern package. Named enemies with long spawn timers and irritatingly low drop rates have been tormenting players for as long as MMOs have been a genre.
So dead. I am gonna kill your ass. Did not get the boots. Motherfucker, I'm never gonna get these boots ever. Fuck this game.
My first experience with this nonsense was in Final Fantasy XI, back in the days when waiting around for a monster to spawn felt like a legitimate part-time job, and it actually was in some cases. I camped out for Leaping Lizzie, a rare lizard with an even rarer pair of boots, but it turned out that Lizzie was a little bit stronger than I expected.
She died.
And it was also locked behind a spawn window that ranged anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 hours, and the drop wasn't guaranteed. This design choice led to players standing in the same spot for hours, sometimes days, competing for a chance at getting a rare item. In case it wasn't obvious already, it wasn't engaging, it wasn't fun, and it sure as hell wasn't exciting gameplay. It was just waiting. The kind of activity best reserved for dentist appointments and government paperwork, not an immersive fantasy world that you'll eventually be paying a subscription for. And while Ashes of Creation might not be that bad yet, the fact that spawn capping is still a common design choice in 2025 says a lot about how little this mechanic has evolved. We've got AI-generated worlds, physics-based combat, and dynamic economic systems, but somehow we're still using mechanics that force players to sit in one spot like they're hostages to a bathroom line at a music festival, clutching their stomachs and praying that they make it before disaster strikes. So, what's the solution? If we're going to make rare items truly difficult to obtain, then at least make the process interesting. Instead of standing around in one place waiting for a digital dice roll, why not implement a system where players actually do something to earn their rewards? Imagine if instead of killing the same monster for days and never getting a drop, players had a system that gradually increased their chances of getting a drop the more of that specific mob they took out, or the longer they went without a drop, which would then reset once they got the drop. On the flip side, you could also reduce the chances that a drop would happen the more a player got it in a row, in the cases of guilds taking over world bosses and things like that. It would still keep the item rare, but at least it wouldn't feel like trying to win the lottery with a single ticket. Or how about crafted consumable boosts that improve drop rates for a limited time in the same way scribes can make enchantment scrolls that offer higher chances of successful enchanting or at a lower gold cost? So instead of waiting, you could actually play the game and work towards a goal. Better yet, what if named monsters with desirable drops had to be summoned through player-driven activities, like gathering special materials or completing mini-quests? So instead of standing around hoping for the best, a player has agency and could take control of the process. Any of these might be an improvement over the current outdated system, which feels less like a game and more like a bizarre social experiment to see how long players will tolerate being bored before they break down and give up entirely. If Ashes of Creation truly wants to set itself apart as the next evolution of MMORPGs, then it's time to leave the outdated mechanics behind and start innovating on the more mundane problems MMO players face. Time in an MMO should be a fun investment, not a mandatory sentence. Players log in to explore, to fight, to trade, not to stand in a field staring at an empty patch of dirt, hoping their digital god finally decides to bless them with a spawn or currently unobtainable mount. Hey Steven, I need a 250% speed spider or scorpion mount, please. Thanks, I'll put that one on order, okay? The best MMOs challenge players through skill, strategy, and decision-making, not by forcing them to play a waiting simulator, with odds so bad they should be government regulated. There's a reason modern games have moved away from outdated mechanics like forced downtime and arbitrary timers, because wasting the player's time isn't difficulty, it's just laziness disguised as tradition. If Intrepid truly wants to set a new standard, it needs to respect the fact that players don't have unlimited hours to waste standing around for named monsters to spawn, let alone compete for those rare monsters with other players for the minuscule chance at a drop. Rare items should be earned, not left up to some digital coin flip that decides whether you get to play the game or you keep staring at an empty patch of dirt. This form of artificial scarcity isn't a test of skill, it's a test of patience. And the only reward is realizing you could have spent those hours doing literally anything else. At some point, Intrepid needs to decide if it wants to set the gold standard for MMO or just be another game weighed down by outdated mechanics. Spawn timers don't have to be unnecessary evil. They can evolve into something better. If the best Intrepid can offer is players standing around staring at an empty space like they're waiting for a prophecy to fulfill itself, then color me disappointed. Because right now, as placeholders, spawn timers aren't a test of skill or strategy. They're just an endurance contest to see who's willing to waste the most time. And that's a challenge nobody should have to accept. If Intrepid truly wants to create the future of MMOs, then it needs to do for spawn timers what it's doing for the node system. Evolve them, make them dynamic, and overall respect the player's time. But if nothing changes, if we're still stuck with the same tired mechanics we've been dealing with for decades, then spawn timers will just be another outdated mechanic dragging down an otherwise ambitious game. One that should be evolving with the rest of its systems, not stuck in the past. But the game is still in alpha, and there is plenty of time to turn spawn timers into something that actually fits the ambitious world Intrepid is building. If they can evolve a system as complex as nodes, then surely they can make rare spawns feel like a part of a living world instead of a relic from the past. And if they do, maybe one day I'll be standing on a coastline, not as a prisoner to an outdated system, but as a hunter, tracking, engaging, and taming a rare mount in a way that feels like an adventure, not an exercise in patience. That's all for today. You're welcome.